Okay, I think I'm live. Coming to you from my couch this time. I am trying to sit less. We'll see how this goes. How are y'all? Hope you're well. We are just gonna talk about some things. I posted on Instagram, letting people know I was going live again tonight. I got a couple of questions, so perhaps we can talk about some of those things. General life update. I'm going a little crazy. It only took 8 weeks. Hello. I'm going a little crazy. Quarantine is actually not the worst of it. Oh my God, can you hear my neighbor's dogs? They are losing their minds. Hello. I'm going a little crazy with this surgery, guys. I am 7.5 weeks out from my surgery, and I am still not healing. Hey guys. Hello. Ooh, someone's about to start Murder on the Orient Express tomorrow. I approve. I hope you enjoy it. It's a good time. Oi, to Brazil! I was wondering where you came up with the name for your channel. Very unique name. I honestly don't remember. People ask me that all the time, and I'm like, I really don't really remember. It's just been so long, and it's what it is. Oh, thank you, Amy. That's very kind. Oh, hello from Liverpool. Lovely. Yeah, but I'm going kind of crazy, guys. So, like, I had my surgery 7.5 weeks ago. They said, you'll be feeling mostly better by 3 weeks, should be pretty healed by 8 weeks. And, you know, as I was going along, people were like, oh yeah, it's pretty small, like it's doing pretty good. Like, seems like you're healing. And I am healing, but it's going so much slower than they expected. And last week, my wound care people were like, yeah, you need to go back to the surgeon because this is like basically the way it's healing, they're a little worried about. And I have to do that tomorrow. And I'm feeling really anxious about that because like there's kind of no good outcome from that. Like if he looks at it and is like, no, it's fine, just suck it up. That's hard for me to like mentally get my head around because there's like no end date. If he's like, oh no, there is a problem, then that's scary because like, what are we gonna do about it? And then if he says, no, there's no problem, like, I don't know, I just feel like there's no outcome of this tomorrow that I'm gonna enjoy. Hey from Raleigh, best wishes for healing, thank you. So I think I'm feeling a little wound up about that tonight because I was feeling really anxious and I was trying to understand why or trying to pinpoint why. And I think I'm just like, oh yeah, like I don't really see an outcome from this discussion tomorrow that's gonna make me feel better. So I'm really tired of not being healed. Honestly, I could be in quarantine for another 3 months if I could snap my fingers and be better by Friday. So anyway, a little vent there. So that's kind of what's on my mind tonight because I have to do that tomorrow. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, I think, you know, I'm lucky enough that I have access to good medical care. I'm lucky enough I have insurance. I'm sure all will be well. For my fellow anxious Andes out there, my particular flavor of generalized anxiety disorder manifests itself as health anxiety. So this has just been a real treat, let me tell you. Like, you can relate, I'm sure. Have you read The Master and Margarita? No, that's one of those ones that I keep meaning to get to, but just haven't yet. Someday. I would say someday when I have more time, but isn't this quarantine proving to all of us that that's just a big fat lie? Like, all the things that you think you would do if you had more time, you wouldn't. I am doing jack shit over here. Like, I don't know. All the things that I always thought if I had more time I would get done are just not actually happening. I'm still trying not to drink. Well, not trying. I'm not drinking alcohol yet. Raspberry lime sparkling water for me. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, I've heard it's great. I've heard it's a great book. Someday. So, anyway, yes, that's kind of what's been on my mind. And then let's see here. I had some topics come through. Some of these I thought might be kind of spicy. Speaking of staying motivated and productive during quarantine, you know, I don't know. I think it helps that I have a very busy job. Like I stay pretty busy, and my job is very heavy on teleconferencing. So I mean, of course I miss seeing my colleagues in person. My day-to-day is actually not all that different right now as it would normally be, because I do spend so much time just on calls or whatever. So I think being productive is not that hard for me right now in terms of work. It's been getting harder in the last week. I was actually just talking with one of my coworkers about it, just because I think it just starts to get to you after a while. I actually, this weekend, my aunt and cousin were in town because they were picking up a car, and they've been in quarantine. I've been in quarantine. We kind of just agreed we would take the risk of seeing each other. So that was the first time I had seen somebody I knew in person in 5 weeks, because I live alone. So, I think everybody has a different lockdown struggle. Some people's struggle is their kids are driving them crazy. Some people's struggle is their partner or their roommate is driving them crazy. And if you live by yourself, your struggle is like, am I becoming truly just unhinged? Because I don't ever see people really. I'm having a hard time doing housework after a day working from home. Yeah, I think it's just hard. I'm going to give you some very basic bitch advice. Mary went to the bookstore for the first time. Sleep schedule is off. Routine is so important. Diet and maintaining good eating habits. Started a new job at the beginning of April. Working remote has been a little different, but you don't know what you're missing. Yeah. I'm going to echo what Kay said. And I think my very basic bitch advice that a lot of people have been saying is, I find the most helpful thing in terms of being productive at work is that I'm, again, lucky enough that I have a designated office, and I force myself to be in there when I'm working. I don't let myself work in my bedroom or in my living room, which is where we are now, because I think having that like little bit of a differentiation of a routine in the day is helpful. Like, I'm not just in the same space all day long. I know that's not possible for everyone, but I do think if you can like carve out a place that you go to work, even if you're out of work and what you're doing is like looking for a job or taking care of whatever, I think that can be a helpful just sort of like breaking up the day. So I think that helps. I agree with what people are saying in the chat about sleep. I'm somebody who, luckily, even though I'm very anxious, it never really manifests in sleeplessness for the most part. Like that's pretty rare for me. And I do think, if you need to pop a couple of Benadryls to help you get there, trying to prioritize getting some sleep is really helpful. And I think, the whole premise of like, how do I stay productive and motivated? I think motivated is a better metric than productive, because like, what is productive right now? Like, outside of anything that you need to get done for your job, like, honestly, I think just being a human, not, like keeping it together during this time is probably all you need to really worry about being productive with. Motivated though, just of like staying actually, recommendation. I just read a little book, which I think it has some out-of-date advice already in it in terms of some of the specifics, but it does, I think, give some good just like application of general anxiety management techniques to the specific situation. I read a little, probably like 70-page book called Coping with Coronavirus, and it had just some very nice like practical, like, here's how you manage like anxiety during this time, and here's how you can give yourself some like structure and whatever. One of the things it was talking about was that I really agree with is like trying to not let yourself bathe in bad news all the time, and trying to look for like moments of hopefulness. Loving the hair. It looks like your hair popped out of the 1920s. Oh, this is my quarantine dude. This is a claw that keeps my hair off of my face. This is how my hair is like most of the time now. What was I saying? Oh, but yeah, I think like trying to find ways to like focus on positive things, finding moments of hope, having grace on yourself. Like, nobody has ever done this before, so nobody knows what we're doing really. And that is hard, but also I think the hopeful thing is it's not like everyone else has this figured out and you don't. We're all just like trying to do our best here, and we just kind of got to keep it pushing. So that's the closest thing I've got to anything like that. Oh yeah, no, it's just like a little claw. It's very helpful for those of you with like shortish hair that you can't really put in a ponytail holder, to keep it off of your face. Okay, other questions that I got. Let's see here. Which fictional characters do you relate most to? Let's see here. Oh yeah, gratitude journal. That's a good idea. Oh, I've started journaling, and I hadn't been doing that, but I have found that to be really helpful to just clear my head a little bit and put things down on paper. Fictional characters I relate most to. I don't know. I think I'm very drawn to characters who are, let's see here. Have you read any YA novels by Neil Shusterman? I haven't. I've got a couple though on my TBR, so it'll happen eventually. I'm very drawn to characters who don't think of themselves as lovable, and a big part of the book is them finding that for themselves. Like, I'm sure many of you can relate to this if you're book nerds, but I was very bullied as a child and felt very unlikable. Like, that I think was a very like deep message I internalized. So I think part of the joy of being an adult has been discovering like, oh no, I am actually very likable. So, I think especially when I went off to grad school and like really kind of found my groove and found my people, I was like, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. Like, I feel like I kind of found that. And frankly, this has, I think, been very affirming of like, oh no, okay, I'm a likable person. So I tend to be drawn to like Jane Eyre, right? Like, that's, I think, a big part of kind of her journey is like finding herself and realizing she is worthy of love. Murderbot, who I love, discovering that they're not just a murderous robot, they're like a full person who deserves kindness and love and friends. Kate Daniels, like all of those characters. I do think Eve Dallas, I think that is a quality in a character. I only think I realized this like at a video that I made earlier this year that I very much resonate with, and I assume it has something to do with the fact that when I was younger I felt like I was not very likable. Ivy is escaping to the bathroom to try to get away from her kids. It's that point in lockdown. Oh, thank you everyone. So yeah, I think that's probably the kind of fictional character I tend to relate to most. I think that's also part of why I really like very low angst relationship type books, because like I am so like I just have zero patience for angst or game playing in any kind of relationship. So I think it's harder for me to connect with stories where there's a lot of like drama, like because I have zero time for that. So I tend to like very low conflict, kind of like more domestic things. Oh no, hey, no, don't do that. Thank you. My kitty cats. If you can't tell, I've got kitty cat tape on most of my furniture, but the like rare pieces of my furniture that I have not taped up, they occasionally will try to scratch. See? Look at her. Hey, sweetie. That's Miss Marple behind me. You got me started reading on the Side Changeling series, and I'm so hooked. Yes. Yes, just what you need to read right now. That is exactly correct. The Side Changeling series is a fantastic series to binge, so I highly recommend it. I'm digging into the Well of Ascension tonight. Fantasy has been my comfort. I could totally see that. Yeah. Karen and Kate are so no nonsense. I love it. They're so straight with each other, except in the book we won't talk about. You mean the book where they got new personalities? Yep. I hate drama and gossip. When a book character is wrapped up in that, it's so frustrating. I'm not drawn to it. Yeah, me neither. I don't know. Maybe it makes me boring or makes these characters boring, but I tend to really genuinely like books where it's two kind of boring people falling in love with each other in a very like relatable way. Like Kate Hardy, she's one of my comfort category romance authors, and her books are so like I love them, but I can objectively say I see that they're a little bit bland, but I really love them. They're just such nice people who are really competent at their jobs, having like normal dating progression. It's very cute. How's Marple doing? Is she coming out of her shell? Yes. Is she still back there? No, she's probably in the other window. Behind the camera is Hastings, and Marple is becoming a little snugglebug. They're still very skittish. Like if I make any loud noises, they freak out. When my aunt and cousin were here, they would not come out. Like my aunt and cousin brought them a piece of stinky fish as a gift, and they wouldn't even come out for that. So they're very scared still, but they're getting better. I haven't seen you do much horror. How do you feel about that genre? I like horror, but I have to be in the right mood for it, because I can be a little bit of a scaredy cat. Yeah, Miss Marple's is very cute. Finished drawing of the 3 this evening. Woohoo, nice classic. I read Magic Bites last month and I was a bit underwhelmed, to be honest. Yeah, Magic Bites is probably the worst in the series. Like, I always recommend people start with the second one because I think it's much clearer and easier to get into. I hate drama in real life and in books, but in RuPaul's Drag Race, I love it. Work. Facts. Are you familiar with Aaron Hunter's Warrior series for young readers? Oh, yeah. I remember that. I didn't read them, and I haven't read them as an adult. But yeah, I mean, I remember that those were a thing that were very popular, if it's what I'm thinking of. Is it the series with, like, the cat warriors on them? That's what I'm thinking of. Logic isn't boring. Better read. Oh, yeah, logic isn't boring. Yeah, no, I agree. For me, it's just, you know. Getting into some classics with a few friends and recently discovered my channel. Say thanks for so many helpful videos. I'm glad they're helpful, Kay. Trying to go back to school. What did you major in? I was an accounting major. Believe it or not. Yes, kitty cats. Hey, Jocelyn, how are you? Speaking of RuPaul's Drag Race, who's your favorite of season 12? So I've not been watching season 12. because I feel really conflicted about the whole Sherry Pie thing. I have, however, been watching recaps and was so intrigued by the political episode that I finally broke down and watched it. So I have seen one episode, and then I've been watching all the recaps. Based on that one episode, I really like Jackie Cox. I don't think she's gonna stay, though, much longer. And I really love Jada Essence Hall. She seems like she's pretty fabulous. Have you read My Vanessa? Oh, My Dark Vanessa? No, I've seen it everywhere, but I haven't read it. I don't even really know what it's about, but it seems like it's having a moment. Hey, Alicia. Stan Jada Essence Hall. Yes, I agree, Tyler. Jada seems pretty great. I really, in that episode, I very much enjoyed her, like, crazy red, white, and blue realness costume. Marble, what are you doing? Come here. Marble, come here. Okay, or you can just literally sit there and chew on that fake tree as if it was a real tree. My Dark Vanessa is intense. I mean, to be fair, it does say My Dark Vanessa in the I mean, it's dark in the title. So I guess they're not false advertising. Jackie Cox is great. I love her so much. Yeah, they actually edit Sherry out of a lot of it. It did seem like they were trying to keep her to a minimum. It's kind of strange watching her, for example, do well with the judges, but we as the audience don't get to see how that fully comes out. It's that, and like literally every time she's on screen, I'm uncomfortable. And like it's no shade to VH1 really, because I'm sure that they're trying to like do their best, and I don't know that it would have been fair to the other contestants to totally ditch the season. Like, it's just me as a viewer, I find it a really uncomfortable experience seeing her on screen. So I just kind of decided I would opt out of it, and I feel pretty good about that. Maybe like when time has passed, I can go back and watch most of the season. I don't know. Good example of a very talented person doing really messed up things. I hope Jada wins, and I think she might have a chance over Gigi, who was the front runner for a while. Gigi seems very young. I don't know. I really like Jada, and I feel like at least the one episode I saw, I feel like Jada was getting kind of a winner's edit, so here's hoping. Or maybe Jackie, I don't know, she could have a come from behind moment. I finished My Dark Vanessa last night. A tough read with a lot to talk about. Yeah. So jarring and disorienting seeing her on screen. Yeah, for me it is. Yeah, that's totally fair. Well, Jocelyn, you'll have to tell me who you're rooting for. I also love, I really liked all the people. Like, Crystal Method seems pretty great. They all seem kind of fabulous, so seems like it was a good crop of them. I would be happy for Jada to win. I know Jackie won't be much longer on the show. I know, I could tell that was where they're going with Jackie. It makes me sad, though, because she seems, like, really fierce. Yeah, it's a lovable top 5. Jada's great, but my faves are Crystal and Heidi. Then again, most of my faves don't win. I think Sasha and Evie are the only exceptions. Yes, I was rooting for them too. I'm trying to think. There's been... Well, I wasn't really rooting for Aquaria, though I think she's a good winner. Wasn't really rooting for Violet, but again, a good winner. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're drag queens. Like, almost by definition, I love them. Speaking of shows with drag queens, if you have not seen We're Here with Bob, Eureka, and Shangela, get thee over to HBO, because when I tell you I watched both episodes available last night and boo-hooed in the most cathartic way possible, it's great. And the first episode's available for free, even if you don't have HBO. So, Highly recommend. I love the panel you moderated. Thank you so much, Adele. I bought a few of the books by the panel authors. You did a great job moderating. Well, thank you for the lovely compliment, and I'm so glad to hear that you bought some of the books. I have Strangers on My Way to Me from Book Depository, and I managed to get a hold of the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, so hopefully I'll read that soon. Hi Mara, have you read Dorothy and Agatha by Gaylord Larson? It's a work of fiction about Dorothy L. Sayers and Agatha Christie. If you haven't read it, I think it would be a good read. I have never even heard of that, so I will have to seek that out. I feel like they would be two very different women. Yeah. I don't know that I know much about their personal relationship, but yeah, they seem like they are two very different journeys. But yes, I highly recommend We're Here. It's very good. But like I said, it will make you cry. Just started I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I've heard good things about that one. Oh, maybe there's a Netflix adaptation of it. How does Side Changeling Trinity fit into the Side Changeling series, or is it a separate series? It's basically like season 2. You can kind of think of it. So you really got to start at the very beginning of the series. But yeah, it's kind of like season 2. I'm Thinking of Ending Things made me so mad, that ending. I've not read it, so I have no idea, no commentary there. How do we get you credit for books we purchase after watching reviews? I don't do any affiliate links. I've thought about it, but it's a lot of work, and I'm just not sure it's worth it to me right now. Maybe someday, if I ever start putting links in my description box, that would be how, but I have not done that yet. It may never, I don't know. Two very different women and not a bad mystery story in and of itself. Noted. Started Southerner's Guide today. So far a fun read. Grady does gross really well. Yeah, one of my best friends was listening to the audiobook and she said that was really excellent. She like really recommended the audio for that book. So FYI, apparently the narrator is really good. Total newbie here. What's a changeling from? Changeling is another word for a shapeshifter. And in the Side Changeling universe, there are humans, there are people with like psychic abilities. Sorry, I'm looking at my cats. Marple. Knock it off. Marple, come here. Okay, they're ignoring me. Sorry. Yeah, so the shapeshifters, they are, I don't even remember. They're a big part of the world. How about that? That's all I got. Oh, sorry. Distracted by the cats. Speaking of making you cry, Beartown is a gut puncher in the same way a heart in the body in the world is. Yeah, I've not read that one, but I've heard it's a weeper. I think I'm gonna go beautiful, and I can't believe that my birthday is coming on May 9th. I did enjoy the live stream. Enjoy your day now. Happy birthday. I think you can read on Side Changeling 1, 2, 3, next 10, and after Trinity. You probably could, but why? Well, no, you couldn't, because you would, sorry. You would at least need to then read probably 12 and 14, I think. Because otherwise you're not going to know what the setup for the Trinity is. And also, why would you deprive yourself of book 12? I bought a backpack from a YouTuber and I contacted the seller to let them know what YouTuber influenced me to buy it. I can let sellers know, maybe they can send the YouTuber free stuff or credit. That is very kind. Have you ever read Dancer from the Dance. No, and I've never heard of it. What are the characters and plays of Shakespeare you connect with best? Connect with? Well, I think Lady Macbeth is fabulous. I really like Macbeth in general. Like, of the major tragedies, it's probably my favorite. I love The Merchant of Venice, which is technically a comedy, but, like, let's be real, that's a tragedy. I love that one. Yeah, those are probably my two favorite Shakespeares. Okay, never have I ever DNF'd a classic. Which one? If you have, oh, plenty. Moby Dick is the most notable one that comes to mind for me. Let's see here. What else did I get over on ye old Instagram? More unpopular opinions on popular books. Trying to think of ones I've not already exposed myself to ridicule and painful comments over. Favorite Virginia Woolf books. I'm very basic. I just love Mrs. Dalloway. Were you a twihard? Oh, well, that was one of the things. So my friend Bethany at Beautifully Bookish Bethany told me to talk about Twilight. So, okay, and this also probably plays into unpopular opinions. I was not a twihard. My origins with Twilight were, I had a friend, actually the same friend who was just telling me how much she was enjoying the Grady Hendrix book. Have I read any Murakami? No, I'm not that interested in Murakami. I should be, but I'm just not. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like that Jane Austen video. I enjoyed making it. My friend, who's been my friend for 23 years now. Wow, that's crazy. So we both loved Harry Potter. We both loved like young adult fantasy kind of stuff. And she was early to the game on Twilight. And she enjoyed it. And she was like, "Oh, well, you like Harry Potter, so you will like Twilight." And I think what she was meaning was like, you like YA fantasy. This is YA fantasy. Maybe you'll like this. But oh man, what a wrong expectation. Oh my gosh, Marble, why are you intent on being such a destructive little demon tonight? And so she gave me a copy of Twilight, or she gave me her copy of Twilight and was like, "Read this." And when I tell you that I have rarely ever been so disgusted with a book, it wasn't even the book. It was just that, like, what a wrong expectation to set up, because in my opinion, it is nothing like Harry Potter, other than the fact that there are like fantastical elements involved in it. So it was just like a completely wrong setup for me to like the book. And then like, even as I was probably 14, 15, somewhere in there, even at that age, I was just like really uncomfortable with the dynamic of just that relationship in general. I don't know that I called it this at the time, but like when I realized he basically had like a blood boner for her in class, he's just like sitting there like thinking about how he wants to suck her blood. I just was like, I'm out. She is not a Capri Sun. And I just am not into it. Now, I like a vampire book now, but I just think the setup for it did not set me up to like it. And then I think because I got off to such a bad start with it, when I kind of kept keeping up with what was happening in the books as they were coming out. And I was like, I think because I come from a fundamentalist religious context, I could see in those books that philosophical root. And as I was increasingly uncomfortable with that in my own religious tradition, I was also really uncomfortable with that in Twilight. I'm very uncomfortable with the whole idea of like, it's okay for me to hurt you after we're married. I just didn't like that. And in terms of Midnight Sun, I guess my feeling about it is very similar to how I felt about, what was the 50 Shades of Grey one from his point of view, and like the new Hunger Games book coming out. I just feel like these books that are retreading popular series that have already come out are taking time and attention away from new things being promoted. So I don't begrudge anybody who enjoyed Twilight. And I want to say, I think that there's so much moralizing around people who enjoyed Twilight, and just generally the moralizing around what teenage girls do and don't like. I'm not into it. So like, that's not like, people who are excited about Midnight Sun, because isn't it basically, it's the same story but from Edward's point of view, right? That's what I've kind of surmised. People who are excited about it because they love Twilight, like, I'm not trying to take that away from them. I think for me, as just like a general member of the bookish community, I would like the time, attention, money that will go into promoting that book to go into new stories and not that. So that's my hot take there. Thank you, Bethany, for getting me in trouble. Okay. Things Fall Apart. Had to read it, I think, 3 different times. I liked it, though. Nothing like Harry Potter. No, it's not. People kept trying to tell me I'd also like Twilight because I liked Harry Potter, and after too many people saying that, I got petty and just refused to read out of principle. Jocelyn, I am the same way. When people try to force me to read something, that is the number one way to keep me from doing it. When people compare The Magicians to Harry Potter as well, ooh, The Magicians is, no. Magicians would be better compared to Narnia, but shitty. My friend did rope me into reading some of The House of Night, even though I never picked up Twilight. I think it was the worst decision. No regrets, Joss. Do you read any Kristen Feehan series? I don't. She's one that I probably, well, but then didn't she have like something, we found out that she's kind of shitty, right? Let me retract that because I don't remember and I don't want to slander her. I feel like I remember a Twitter dust up, but I might be wrong. Do I like Lady Gaga? I mean, who cannot? Don't love her makeup though. Midnight Sun is the best book. I'm glad. Has it come out? I don't know if it's come out, but okay. I had no idea Midnight Sun was even a book. Edward's POV. I think it's Edward's POV. I'm not sure. Those stories have run their course and it's time for new ones. Yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about it. But I mean, hey, maybe if this was like an entire rehash of Kate Daniels, but all from Curran's point of view, like, would I be there for it? I would. So I mean, like, I get it. I do get it if you love those books. It's just not, for me as somebody who's not invested in those books, it's like, I would love for that money to go to a different author. Or go to the same author, but for a new story. At least the 13 League chapters were great. I've read all the rest of Stephanie Meyer's books, and Midnight Sun was the best. Well, I'm glad that it was meeting your expectations. You remembered rightly, Feehan tried to copyright words. Yes. That happened a few different times, right? A few different romance authors have tried to copyright words. Let me just tell you, you can't go trying to copyright like alpha in romance novels, like, please. Can you please recommend a book with a mystery like The Da Vinci Code? Okay, I'm gonna assume you mean some sort of like historical secret kind of thrillery thing. Oh, try reading some Arturo Perez Reverte. He's got a few that sort of have like a secret society kind of mystery thing. I can't remember. The Club Dumas. The writing is a lot better, so it's not going to be as compulsively readable like the Da Vinci Code, but it's the same type of story. Books I liked are A Gentleman in Moscow, Lily and Boxfish Takes a Walk, and All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. Are you a creative writer? Yes, I do write for fun. In theory, in this pandemic, I should be getting so much done. You can guess how that's going. Oh my God, do I look I look red. The light, I would be worried that I'm, turning colors, but this is not showing up as the right color either. So anyway, I think the word was cocky. I don't think Kristen Feehan did cocky. I think that was a different one, but yeah, I just used alpha as like an example of a preposterous one to try to copyright. I don't know. I feel like these authors are just looking for more money since their series were a success and then they just keep digging deeper. I mean, I'm not going to hate on anyone's hustle, like get the coin, cough, J.K. Rowling, cough. I just, like I said, it just takes up a lot of oxygen in the room and there's only so much room. I mean, I wish it wasn't true. And I think with online publishing, it's less true, but there's only so many books that can get a lot of attention. So it's kind of a zero-sum game. Pretty sure I caught an LJ Shin moment in one of her books where she made fun of Cockygate. I would love, well, I like a meta reference. I've been trying to write my own mystery short stories. However, I feel like I just can't develop my own stories. And I keep inspiring myself on Agatha Christie and Conan Doyle. Do you have any tips? I think you kind of just have to like write more. I don't know. I feel like the more you write, the more you develop your own kind of sensibility and voice. But sometimes you sort of just have to write things that are kind of an imitation to kind of learn what you're doing, and then eventually that leads to you kind of figuring out what you want to do. But I don't, as long as you're not actually copying. But then again, I mean, fan fiction, whatever. But like, basically, there's a reason why fan fiction is such a helpful way people get into writing their own stuff, is that it kind of lets you try things out without having to come up with everything on your own. If that makes sense. So I would say just keep writing through it, and eventually you'll kind of cycle out of it. Andrew Halloran books. I am sorry, I don't know who that is. Have you read The Luminous Dead? It was my favorite 2019 read. I have not, but I'm glad that it was your favorite. Oh, New Padilla? Thank you. You gave a very excellent explanation of use of preferred pronouns in the comments on my panel video. Your screen name was distinctive, and I remember thinking you did a lovely job summarizing that, so thank you. I used to love JK, but now she's just adding to the story, and some stuff doesn't even make sense. What was the cursed child? I mean, yeah, the cursed child is not great. Oh my gosh, come on, show me chat. Christine Feehan tried to trademark the word dark. Yes, that's right. Yeah. I'm sure some lawyer gave her some bad advice, but yikes. Very excited for Network Effect by Martha Wells. How do you think it fits in with the rest of the series? I think it... how to say this? So I think the first 4 novellas, we get a definite arc, right? So this is a new kind of phase of Murderbot's life. And I think it does a good job of deepening characterization for Murderbot and some of the supporting characters. I guess it does leave off with some interesting possibilities about where it could go. It also, though, reads to me like it could be an ending in the same way Exit Strategy was an ending. Like, it doesn't feel like it leaves you with a ton of like hanging threads. So I think it could be a satisfying ending in and of itself. It also does lend itself to some interesting future possibilities. Mostly it's just a delight. I think people who enjoy that series are not going to be disappointed with it. Can you explain and give examples of the term literary fiction? Literary fiction, I think usually, I think literary fiction can be used in two different senses. It can be used in the sense of being descriptive of any piece of fiction. I think it also can be, it's also a genre in and of itself. So sometimes I think literary fiction is used to communicate that there is, regardless of like maybe the type of book it is, there is a aspiration to some sort of beauty of the prose, profundity of theme, or like importance, capital I, importance of the book. So I think that can kind of transcend genre to some degree. So like, for example, in classic literature, which I think we would probably agree has a high literary quality to it, there's a lot of different genres, like the mystery, the Woman in White is a mystery. And then Jane Eyre is kind of like a Bildungsroman. So I think it can be used descriptively in that way, but I think it also is a genre in the sense of most of the major literary prizes every year are rewarding books that are very, very high emphasis on prose, usually over plot. Like these literary fiction tends to, in my mind, often doesn't have a lot of plot happening. Not always, obviously, and I think good literary fiction isn't entirely navel-gazy, but I think the stereotype is that literary fiction can be very just like character and like if you think about the like prose, character, plot, I think literary fiction tends to be very focused on prose and character. Prose also encompassing like themes. So yeah, that's my rough thoughts on that. Oh yeah, I really tried to make sure it was a cohesive explanation. It was indeed. What kind of music do you dig? All kinds. I've not been keeping as much up with music, but then again, I'm now in my early 30s, so isn't that sort of inevitable? I grew up listening to a lot of oldies. I tend to like a lot of, like big voices. So like I really like Lizzo. She's fun to sing along with. Musicals, rap, hip hop, rock. I mean, really anything. Whatever is on often. Finished reading Hearthstone after watching your videos. Thank you for that. I loved it. I'm so glad. I have got to finish that trilogy. Man, I keep meaning to get back to it. Okay, I'm supposed to be thinking about more unpopular bookish opinions. I don't know. I feel like I've shared so many of them. Oh, I know one. This will be controversial. I saw somebody comment on this on my recent vlog. I need to catch up with my comments. That reminds me. By the way, I often read my comments before I get around to actually responding to them. But anyway, I do not have a problem with rating books that I have DNF'd. In terms of I give them 1 star on Goodreads, because Goodreads does not give me the option to give it 0 stars. And I think as long as you're clear that you DNF'd it, that is not a problem. Because like, I think of the read shelf on Goodreads in the same way that I think of the term read for an audiobook. Okay, like what I mean is I am done with this book. Even if I did not get all the way through it, I'm done with it. Now, I personally don't consider a book a true DNF unless I made meaningful progress on it. So like I wouldn't do this to a book that I read 20 pages of and noped out of. But if I made it 100, 150, 200 pages into a book and gave up, I feel completely justified giving it a 1 star and saying, I did not finish this and I did not like it. So there's an unpopular opinion. Though actually I know a couple of other booktubers who feel that way, but I won't out them because I know it's unpopular. I know you liked 8 Perfect Murders and have read some of the books on Malcolm's list. Of the ones you've read, which ones do you think deserve to be on the list versus which ones do you think didn't? Frankly, most of them. Like now that I just finished reading A Red House Mystery, and while it may be a classic, I don't think it was a perfect murder. I don't know. I thought it was a specious list at best, TBH. Though, okay, Double Indemnity is a classic. Strangers on a Train is a classic and deserved to be there, but I don't know. But good question. I like that question. My favorite book ever is Call Me by Your Name. I thank you with your explanation, which really helped. This would be literary fiction. Thank you. Yeah, my impression is that is literary fiction. I would think of that as probably like a coming of age story, right? Which often fall under literary fiction. So I want a fancy with an epic, sexy romance, but I want a high fantasy. Does that make sense? I want the first, I read the first side Changeling and it wasn't deep enough for me as where high fantasy would be. Yes, so a few suggestions. Grace Draven writes high fantasy romance. I'd recommend Mila Vane has a new series of them coming out. The first one is A Heart of Blood and Ashes. It's good. And then The Wolf and the Whale by Jordana Max Brodsky is a high fantasy with romance. And then Katie Wilde. I love those. So yeah, that definitely exists. Side Changeling I would describe as an urban fantasy romance. So it's like not high fantasy, it's urban fantasy. I like that noped and DNF'd are different categories. Yes. That actually, yeah, like that is sort of the distinction I have of like, sometimes I'll try a book and immediately realize I'm not going to be into it. And in that case, like, I'm not an unreasonable person. I'll probably just like delete it off of my Goodreads account and never think about it again. But like if I made enough progress on it to be like, oh no, like I've read enough of this to know that I'm done with it. Yeah. I DNF'd Endless Night, but I read it after Crooked House, so it feels like the odds were stacked against it. I just despise the main character too much to be bothered. I do not like Endless Night, which is an unpopular opinion in the Christie-verse. I know this because in my ranking Agatha Christie's books from worst to best, I definitely heard from some Christie fanboys. Christie fan dude bros who were very bothered by how low I had it. Eight Perfect Murders, didn't they have Secret History on that list? That seems so strange to me. That murder was a mess. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think Secret History is a fantastic book, but I wouldn't consider that to be a perfect murder. Like, yeah, even the ABC Murders, which is on the list, like, I think that's closer to being a truly, really clever way to do it, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll give him that one. But yeah, I don't know. I felt like that list was a little weak sauce if the criteria was like perfect murders. But then again, that is in the text. In the text, he says it wasn't really the perfect murders. It was his favorites. So I guess there you go. I DNF both, and then there were none, and Murder on the Orient Express. Sad face. I don't know if Agatha Christie just isn't for me, if there's another place I should start with her. You know, not every author is for every reader. And while I don't understand it, she very well may just not be for you. And that's okay. You gave it your best shot. If you didn't like either of those, trying to think if there's one that's tonally quite different from that maybe you would like better. I don't know, maybe try a Marple, like maybe try a Murder at the Vicarage, but I think you can also just say that you just don't like her, and that's okay. One of the things I like best about your channel, and by definition you, well, that's kind, is how eclectic your reading taste is. You do influence me to try books I might not otherwise read. Well, thank you. I'm glad that I encourage you to expand your horizons. I think having the channel helps me be more deliberate about keeping things mixed up. Before I had the channel, I would get really stuck in a certain genre and kind of just get really focused in. And I think having the channel helps me deliberately kind of keep it mixed up. Agatha Christie Dude Bros, oh goodness. I was not aware that such a group of fans existed, but like I've deleted most of the like truly egregious comments, but like if you just want to go take a look over on that video's comments, like there's some people truly outraged, and like also people who got mad at me at how many disclaimers I put at the beginning, and I'm like, dude, look at the comments. This is proving why I needed to put these disclaimers in. I get it, guys. Like I know why people get annoyed at disclaimers at the beginning of YouTube videos, but if you had to read all these comments, you would do it too. There's like no winning, because if you don't put in the disclaimers, then you get the same comment 3,000 times, and well-meaning people start to annoy you. But if you do put in the disclaimers, then you have people annoyed that you put in the disclaimers. Anyway, side note. Darker and gray. I'm not sure I know the context of that. Thank you for the recs. I've marked them down. The Wolf and the Whale was phenomenal, so absolutely excited. Yay! Oh, I'm glad you like The Wolf and the Whale. I have to say, I think of the people who've read that on my recommendation, I think I've had a very high hit rate. That is a really underrated book, I think, from last year. It was really fun. It had some pacing issues, but it was like unique. It was a different, I don't think I've ever read something quite like that before, and I really enjoyed it. I agree, it's hard to find booktubers with a lot of variety, which is how I read too. Well, thank you. If you're looking for someone else who reads pretty widely, the biggest booktuber who like, of the big booktubers, which let's say that's like 50,000 plus, the person who I think is closest to my reading taste is Jean Bookish Thoughts, and she is very much an omnivore. So if you're not watching her, I very much recommend her. She also just seems like a lovely human being, and she's Scottish, so she has a lovely accent, and she's getting her PhD in classics. So like just all around a delight of a human being, it seems. Loving Julie James and Nalini Singh. Thanks for those recommendations. Yay! Oh, that makes me so happy. Julie James needs to give me a new book. It's been like 3 years. I'm a little sad. I think she might not be back. Have you read In the Dark by Loreth White? I think this book would be perfect for you, secluded murder mystery. I have it. I just haven't read it yet. But yes, when I saw that description, I was like, this is a book for me. And it had been on my radar, and then it was a free book through Amazon Prime. So I got it for free, which was exciting. Dude Bro fans are everywhere. They truly, truly are. You have such beautiful skin. You're so kind. What are your fave skincare products? Right now, soap and water. I don't know. I think because I've been so not doing my full skincare routine, I really have kind of like reassessed how necessary extensive skincare routines are. My like go-tos right now, I'm using what is it? First Aid Beauty Cleanser. It's good, just like simple cleanser. And then I like the Belief Aqua Bomb. And honestly, that's most of it. When I'm feeling fancy, I use some Good Genes from Sunday Riley, which is very expensive, but I do think if I'm feeling a little congested in my skin, it helps. And then a rose hip seed oil from The Ordinary, I think is a lovely, like, deeper moisturizer. But thank you for the compliment. I feel my skin's been pretty clear recently. My biggest problem is I get hyperpigmentation because I'm so fair. So, like, this was somebody, I, like, accidentally, like, scratched myself. I guess in this lighting you can't tell, but I have, like, this little scar from literally where I just accidentally scratched myself 7 months ago. But it will be there forever. I love Jean Bookish Thoughts. Love Jean, love Jean. Yes, Jean is so great. If you watch me, you should definitely go watch Jean. And like I said, she just seems also like a lovely human. Also, I believe her father also, she's lost her father, so I share that affinity of losing your father at a young age. But she's fantastic. I'm trying to think of other good, like, omnivores. I think, like, books with Emily Fox, I think, reads a pretty good mix of things. She and I tend to have not opposite opinions, but, like, we definitely have very different things we like in certain books. If that made sense, that was really vague. Yeah, it is kind of hard to find people who really read it all on BookTube, I think. But, you know, even, like, I do consider myself an omnivore, but really, you know, my kind of, like, core genres are, well, I was about to say, when I say this, I'm going to be like, well, that covers most of the genres. Like, mystery, romance, sci-fi, fantasy, and classics tend to be kind of like my and nonfiction. Okay, never mind. I take it back. I do read a pretty good mixture. Never mind. I think it's hard to find people who really do kind of mix it up a lot. But, you know, I think you can find people who at least have a few different genres. So, like, Books and Lala, I feel like is someone who reads thriller, young adult contemporary, young adult fabulism. Like, that seems to be her little genre combo. Who else? I'm trying to think of other people who have, like, a couple of different ones. Well, it's been interesting recently. My Sam at Thoughts on Tomes has started reading some romance recently, which is really interesting to watch her develop her taste. I'm trying to think. Maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think of, like, some of the bigger ones that people will know as sort of like a point of reference, but I've honestly fallen off watching some. But I mean, I also think there's value in channels who, like, are really specific in what they like. It just depends. I got into your channel through mystery. I'm not a fan of fantasy, and so many booktubers read mostly fantasy. Books and Lala is great. Yes, there are a lot of fantasy readers. I do like fantasy, but not every book is for everyone. Love Books and Lala. Her vlogs are amazing. They really are. You know, her and Chandler Ansley, I've been watching their vlogs very, like, analytically recently, because there is something about the timing of their vlog. Like, I can't tell if it's the editing or the kind of clips they're filming, but I really like the pacing of their vlogs. And I'm trying to learn more about how they do that. Lala reads such different books that I feel a lot of people don't talk about. I do think Lala does a really good job of of reading backlist, which is something I always appreciate. So does Jean. Chelsea Palmer is good. Good to know. Well, let me see. Are there any other big questions that I got from Instagram? No, I think we actually covered most of these. Who's Chelsea Palmer? Who is she, a booktuber? What kind of stuff does she read? She don't know me. It is interesting, just kind of like, I don't know, falling in love with different booktubers' content. Like, I definitely fall down the rabbit hole with people sometimes. And it's interesting because sometimes I love them because we have similar tastes, and sometimes I love them because, like, we don't read the same things. And I just find that interesting. I don't know. Romance. Chelsea Palmer reads a lot of different stuff, but lately especially romance. Oh, interesting. I'll have to seek her out. I suck at blogging. It's definitely, I don't know if I'm good at it. I enjoy it, so I'm trying to do more of it. Have you read any Dorothy L. Sayers? Yes, I have. I very much like Dorothy L. Sayers. She's no Agatha Christie, but I do enjoy her. Well, folks, anything else we need to address this week? Because I'll be back next week. Just discovered Heather from Bookables. I'm really enjoying her videos. Yeah, I like Heather. I should just practice. It would help my vlogging. Yeah, even if you end up throwing away the footage, it can be a good way to get better at it. Chelsea Palmer also has the goats that show up in her vlogs sometime. Well, say no more. Say no more. Have you ever watched the 1945 film version of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None? It's available on YouTube in a nice movie. I think I did back in college. I watched a couple of adaptations in college. The one I really liked of And Then There Were None was that weird, trippy 60s one. Does anyone remember that movie? It's bizarre, and it has a weird ending. But I kind of liked it. It was, like, very groovy. I really enjoy your vlogs. Thank you. I really like doing them. They feel more creative. I know they're not everyone's favorites, but I'm trying to get better at them, and I do like them. Then There Were None gave me nightmares. Well, effective psychological thrills. Thoughts on Tomes is a good booktuber for fantasy, sci-fi, and romance. Yes. Her romance is evolving. It's interesting because she actually, I would argue she tends to actually be more of a women's fiction reader. But I know that's a petty quibble. One thing I love asking people who loved Wuthering Heights is what they first encountered, the Kate Bush song or the book. The results have been very surprising. Didn't even know there was a song. So there you go. Thanks for the chat. It's been a long quarantine, and chatting with book people sure does help. I'll definitely keep looking forward to your channel. Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing these every Tuesday night, so long as I'm locked down. So we'll be at least through the end of June. Cats, goats, and all the cute animals help any video. That is a fact. I also love the J.D. Robb series. Work as my book boyfriend, LOL. I do. I love the In Death series. It's true what they say, never work with animals, they steal the show. Yes. Any recommendations for more mature adult fiction or fantasy that still have magical YA feeling? I would argue that both V.E. Schwab and Brandon Sanderson, to me, even though they are writing ostensibly towards adults, I think that they read very much the way YA reads. So I would say those are two good, like, bridging fantasies. Let me check my calendar. Yep, I've got nothing. Yeah, exactly. Cracks me up when people are like, hey, can we do this at this time? I'm like, well, let's run down here. Yep, I think we can. Goldfinch was trash. I've never read it. It just seemed like a real long book. I think you would really enjoy City of Brass, plus the trilogy ending comes out this June. Oh, okay, good to know. I do tend to like, well, I've started some series in progress. In theory, my rule is I like to wait until series are done. before I start them. But good to know. What makes a book women's fiction? Genre romance. I would argue that women's fiction and chick lit have strong romantic elements, but that is not the forefront of conflict in those books. They often also include as strong or even stronger elements of like friendship stuff, things with family, job stuff. So, I'm trying to think of a good example here. They also don't tend to be as tropey, or like they just have different tropes to them, I guess. I'm trying to think of a good example of something that's sort of in between. Like How to Hack a Heartbreak last year, I thought was like chick lit with strong romantic elements more than a romance. But I think it was probably sold as a romance. Devil Wears Prada, yeah, I guess I would call that women's fiction probably. Like the Sophie Kinsella books, like are classic examples. But I think the genre has moved on. Like those tended to be, like, here's the thing. Chick lit was a thing, and then it really died off. And it has, I think, been sort of re-emerging, kind of rebranded as romantic comedies. And it is sometimes hard, as somebody who reads romance, to suss out from book descriptions if they are romantic comedies or women's fiction romantic comedies. So, like, trying to think of a recent example. Like Beach Read, which comes out from Emily Henry here in a little bit, I think really straddles this line. But I think it ultimately is a romance that reads somewhat like women's fiction. Love Lettering, I read last month, I think is ultimately a romance that somewhat reads like women's fiction. I think women's fiction often also somewhat has higher aspirations in terms of its thematic content. Sometimes that's successful, sometimes it's not, but I think that's there. Anyway, I'll stop on that. Great book one fantasy is Priory of the Orange Tree. It's huge, but totally worth it. There are dragons. Do love a dragon. Any male romance recommendations that don't fetishize the leads? No. Not that I've read. Places I would point you that I've heard do a good job, TJ Klune, who has Own Voices, so at least there's that. And then there's one coming out this month. Actually, it may have just come out called The Meet Cute Club that I really want to read. It's Own Voices, and I think it looks really great. So true how hard it is to tell romance and women's fiction apart. I can't figure out what the honey don't. I think you're saying what the honey don't list is. Yes, that's a perfect example. The honey don't list from Christina Lauren, which just came out, is a perfectly good women's fiction book. It is sold, however, as a romance, and therefore I think was disappointing. I think if it had been hit, and I think Christina Lauren does seem to be making some noises that that's kind of where they're starting to move, is more towards women's fiction. I think if you're okay with it not really being a very satisfying genre romance novel, it's a really well-written book that's very fun, but I don't think was very satisfying as a romance. So, for whatever that's worth. Okay, guys. I am getting worn out, so I think we're going to start wrapping this plane. Wrapping this plane up, landing this plane. I saw your video on pretty covers versus ugly last night. I totally agree on the romance covers. Picked up Come As You Are. The cover is so pretty. It's true. Come As You Are has a very punny cover, which I enjoy. Like I said, I will be back here next week, 8 p.m. Central. So we can keep the conversation going. Thanks for hanging out. I think it's just nice to kind of chill with you guys a little bit whilst we're all in lockdown. Yeah, and also I'm trying to get some special guests on here so you don't just have to listen to me. So stay tuned for that. But for now, I think that will do it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out in chat, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!